Thank you, Matt.
No problem.
This is Roberto Ravelis, president of Gold Canyon Community, Inc. I'd like to welcome our guests and our guest speaker in particular. Why don't we go ahead and start? If Matt, if you could just announce the board members who are on the line.
Sure. So I'll start with myself, Matt Bartolas, secretary. Roberto Ravelis, obviously president of the organization. We have Maxine Brown, who is vice president. Dave Coward, who is treasurer. And then along with that, we have Charlie Goff, Jerry Stevenson. Who else do we have on the call? I'm sorry. Steve Nauer. Yep. And that is it.
Yeah, Dick Richards is not here. Yeah.
Yes. Along with Sandy Smith.
Okay. And we'd like to welcome our guests. If you would each identify yourselves and feel perfectly free to tell us what neighborhood you live in, and welcome.
I'm Phil Corcoran, and I live in Superstition Mountain. Thank you.
Thank you, Phil.
Hi, Roberto. Glenn Fulmer here. I live on Peralta Trails. And by the way, the background screens, all the stuff that they're talking about changing. So that's why I'm here.
Good. Thank you.
Hey, I'm Pat Wittek, also Peralta Trails.
Welcome.
I'm Donna Weiss, Mesa del Oro.
Welcome, Donna.
Thank you.
Carol Hazen, Mountain Brook.
Welcome.
I'm Monica. I'm also Peralta Trail. And
Welcome, Monica.
I'm Sue Lagaki, Foothills at Gold Canyon.
Welcome, Sue.
I'm Phil Todd and Dorothy Todd in Mesa del Oro.
Thank you, Phil and Dorothy. Anybody else?
Hi, good morning, Roberto and board. This is Connie Van Dr. I live on the other side of the mountains, right up against the forest boundary. And I also work with Supervisor Jeff Surdy.
Welcome, Connie.
Roberta, you're muted.
He's good.
No, my icon did.
No,
Roberta.
I was muted, Roberta. So again, Roberta Russell from Mountain Brook.
Welcome, Roberta Russell.
Thank you.
Anybody else?
Abe Dye joined us recently.
Yes. Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Good. Glad to be here.
Very good. Thank you. Well, welcome. And let's, I'd like to start off by asking our three main standing committee chairs to give a very brief summary of a report on their latest activities. So start off with Jerry.
Okay, Roberto, let me just pull this up here. We met we meet on a monthly basis, and this last month we met in the middle of the month, and these are our minutes. I'll get to that in a minute. We had invited Adobe, and they did not show for this meeting. They usually Glenn Walt does that, but unfortunately he could not make it. The main part of the discussion we had was around the proposed amendment, and which has since been withdrawn, but we did spend time thinking about the process of getting Highway 24 accelerated and working with the North-South corridor. Both of these are long-term efforts, but we wanted to sort of harmonize this in these areas like Ray Road coming into this area from the Apache Junction area. All these things are key points in the long term. So I'm not going to boil this anymore, but this is really important to us for long-term planning. On the short term, we have major issues, as you know, for day-to-day traffic in peak periods with the lights, the synchronization, and the huge amount of traffic, and that's compounded with the Renaissance Fair. This is still a hotspot, and we're working with MAG to get a study and get some remediation in this area. We're also actively involved with Pinal County on determining what needs to be done in near-term, near-in areas in Gold Canyon, like where do we need extra stoplights or signals or remediation for traffic harmonization. You know, should we have walking trails more defined? Should we have crosswalks, etc.? So we're looking for input from the community on that, but that's also in a focus area. Lastly, we're very involved in the East Valley Partnership, Pinal Partnership, and with ADOT. And we spend a lot of time, and I won't go into that now, but we're very engaged in working on the short-term and the long-term future of transportation in our area. Any questions? Thanks, Roberto.
Okay, our next report on conservation and aesthetics, Charlie Goff.
Hi, Charlie Goff. As Roberto said, I am chair of the Conservation Committee. I'm also president of SALT, the Superstition Area Land Trust, and SALT's mission is to conserve the natural Sonoran Desert open space surrounding the Superstition Wilderness area. And so we think those two positions dovetail very nicely. We are continuing our efforts to conserve as much of the Superstition foothills, as we like to call them, which is the area primarily south of the Superstition Wilderness area, coming as far south as the foothills come, really. And our model is something that SALT developed way back around 2000, the Superstition Area Land Plan. And we are most interested in conserving land adjacent or close to the wilderness area, and to a good extent that adjacent to Gold Canyon. But again, we'd like to conserve it using the model of the Superstition Area Land Plan. That's an effort that has gotten a lot of attention over the couple of decades now, more than 2 decades, from not only people in the Gold Canyon and perhaps Apache Junction area, but in fact, a much broader area, Phoenix's entire East Valley. So our efforts reach into the East Valley as well. We have some efforts underway now to measure just how much interest there really is, broad-based, in realistically conserving a lot of that area. I suspect our speaker will be touching on some background information for that. At the very least, it will be showing us what a heavy lift it is, because it's going to be quite expensive for someone to conserve that land. It can't simply be donated. It has to be purchased somehow. And I think I'll let it go at that, because I suspect we'll hear a bit about that.
Okay, and next, marketing and membership, Dave Coward. Dave Coward.
Muted.
Sorry, I muted myself. And I would like to ask everybody who's not speaking to actually mute yourself, because that helps cut back on the background noise that can be somewhat distracting, especially when our guest speaker is up. But we've been working, and Steve will probably be talking about this coming up in his report, about conducting a survey, a more detailed survey of the community. And what I've been doing is trying to contact as many of the other groups that are working in Gold Canyon for the betterment of Gold Canyon. Like there's a group called the Gold Canyon Acts of Kindness, Gold Canyon Strong, the Gold Canyon Business Administration, And we've been trying to contact them to get their input on the survey and to help join us in the future planning that we'll be introducing to you later. We're also approaching the faith community, and because we feel that all these groups are stakeholders in Gold Canyon. And Jerry has been working extensively getting a coordination with Adobe and the new Homeowners Alliance. So we're trying to reach out to as much of the community as possible so we can all work together for our mutual goals. So that's kind of what we've been working on. We, as far as membership goes, we haven't announced any formal memberships plan, but we hope to do that in the future. That will help us with some of our ongoing cost. We'll probably hopefully start that next year. But what we've done is we have applied for nonprofit status with the IRS. So we're kind of waiting to see if when we get that notification, then whatever donations or membership payments are given to this group will be tax deductible, which is always helpful for a lot of people. So that's kind of what we're doing in the membership and marketing.
Steve Nauer.
I think we can all recognize with some of the recent activities and discussions in the community what the importance of good, sound community planning means. You know, and unfortunately, Gold Canyon has never really had a community plan because we're unincorporated, and for a variety of reasons, it's just never happened. So our group is very happy to announce we will begin a community planning process shortly in cooperation with Arizona State University and their graduate program of urban studies, and with Pinell County as partners in it. It will start with a community survey, as Dave said, that will be coming out sometime in October, early October. That obviously will be the basis to establish community needs and desires as we begin in January working with the ASU graduate program on the first phase of development of a community plan. And this will really be, you know, almost the first opportunity for the citizens of Gold Canyon to begin some discussions on what is the future of Gold Canyon? What's it look like? What's the land use look like? Where's development proposed to be? And so forth. So we're just excited to announce you'll start seeing some communication coming out shortly. The whole community will on the plan. And I just encourage you to encourage your neighbors to participate, because this is really going to set the future for Gold Canyon. And we're really looking forward to it.
Thank you, Steve. Any other committee report from anybody? If not, I'd like to move on to welcome our guest speaker, who really needs no introduction. She's been a presence in Arizona for a number of years. I personally have worked with Lisa Atkins for starting about 2 decades ago. We both served in the U.S. Congress staff. And so, Lisa, welcome. And we're happy to have you with us.
Thank you, Roberto. I appreciate the opportunity, and I hope that the audio is working.
It is.
Okay, good. Many of you saw the PowerPoint that I did when meeting with SALT. I think I'm going to forego that, and let's have a conversation about what's on your mind. I was happy to see that you put the map up with the 24 and the north-south. We were very pleased to get the news from ADOT of the final location of north-south. There had been an effort to move it to the west side of the CAP canal, which we knew was not in the best interest as far as the land department was concerned for how your region is growing. So that was a delightful bit of news from ADOT for us. The department has spent quite a lot of time in your neighborhood, and I'm very happy for that. What is in your interest is in our interest. Please remember that the land department is a public agency, clearly part of the state, but manages a trust asset of land and natural resources, including subsurface minerals, that was given to the state at statehood for a specific purpose, and that is to generate revenue in perpetuity for a defined group of beneficiaries, the largest of which is K-12. So while no bit of land or assets in the state of Arizona can be isolated from its surrounding, we certainly keep that in mind at all times, but we also know that we have a primary responsibility as far as the beneficiaries are concerned. And I think the missing link in the conversation with the land department for a long time has been who we are, what we do, and what the contribution of the trust can be to the overall benefit of the state. And Roberto and I have talked about that several times. We went through, during our time on Capitol Hill, when Congressman Udall was not only a senior member of the Arizona delegation, but also the chairman of the House Interior Committee, the protected areas that you have as your backyard, which are just phenomenal wilderness areas, was all done under his leadership with the entire delegation. So land use patterns in the state have included a wide variety of inputs over the years. And of course, one of the things that keeps all of our communities going is not only that open space, but in my case, the ability to manage the portfolio in such a way that it becomes part of the community. So when we sell land, we are selling it for a reason. We just don't put land on the market for no reason at all. But it becomes part of the private property portfolio in the state, which really is the foundation of the economic engine for the state. But the state has all along recognized that there are areas that do need protection. And like I said, you've got some of the prime areas right outside your back door, and those are the wilderness designations that were done by the congressional delegation when both of us were on Capitol Hill. The other thing is there's a very large footprint of federal land in the state of Arizona. If you take the private land holdings with the holdings of the trust, you're talking about possibly 25% of the entire land base of the state. Everything else is owned or managed by the federal government in some way, or is part of the Native American tribal reservation patterns across the state. That includes also all the military operations. Goldwater Range is a unique area in the state of Arizona. You cannot duplicate that any place in the United States. We have military installations throughout, and we also have some of the most magnificent Forest Service and national park lands. So as far as the health of the state's economy, we also look at the trust as a portion of keeping the economy healthy, because when trust lands are sold, they become private property, contributing to making sure that the infrastructure of the state has the appropriate revenue stream to be able to support it. Our roads, our infrastructure, and all those things that make communities and regions strong. Our job is to manage the portfolio in that manner. I'm not foolish. I know that of the 9.2 million acres that we currently manage, which is just about 90% of what was given to the state more than 100 years ago. So we've not sold off lands willy-nilly. It's been an intricate process for the last 100 years. But when we do that, we don't do it in isolation. We are not moving land to market. Whether I do it on my own, I can take land to market when I see that there's a need and we don't necessarily have an applicant. But we're sensitive to where the growth is and where the potential is to benefit the beneficiaries. I listened to who is on the call. I know that we have some folks that probably have questions. I'd rather stop instead of talking about the land department and the trust and have a conversation with you all to hear your comments as well as attempt to answer any questions that you have.
Wonderful. And if you'll unmute yourselves, identify yourselves and state your question. We have open mic. First question. Don't be bashful.
Please unmute yourself if you'd like to ask questions. You can also put a question in the chat and we can raise it here.
I have a question. Couple of things. I'm surprised, and I went to the Gold Canyon Home Alliance meeting, and it was kind of sad in a sense because I think a lot of us, and I'm in Peralta Trails, like I mentioned, but a lot of us felt left out of the other communication, and I still haven't got a good answer why it couldn't be on the south or the side of US 60. CERTI didn't answer that well, and I'm kind of concerned about that. But I'd like to see this group and Adobe and also the Gold Canyon Home Alliance, the new group, be able to work together. I think there's a lot of stuff we have in common, and I'm not sure how to go about that. But I love this land, and there's got to be something else done. Just because it's next to the Tono National Forest doesn't mean that it's not, special to a bunch of us, especially in Peralta Trails. And, I'm seeing 800 more homes in Peralta Canyons being built. And for the sake of me, I'm not sure, there hasn't been any planning from the state side and from, federal side and for US 60. The best we can do is get US 60 repaved, and that was a hassle. But anyway, that's my question is basically, how can we communicate together with the different groups? And there's a lot more people than just Gold Canyon being affected by this.
Glenn, let me answer the first part of the question because
Sure.
it's unfair to ask Lisa Atkins to comment on our communities, various groups. But we of GCCI have made numerous reach outs to Adobe, and obviously we're successful with SALT from the initial get-go. And we've extended our invitations also to the newest one, the Homeowners Alliance. So that, unfortunately, it has not been received positively, but we're continuing to work on that. And I'm convinced, as I was 2 years ago when I reported to Adobe, that I was confident that eventually we as a community would be speaking with one voice. But Commissioner Atkins, if you would address the rest of Mr. Fulmer's question.
So we have spent a great deal of time in this administration taking a look at how the land department had been doing some of its work in isolation. What is visible most of the time to the public is when we are involved in real estate transactions. When a piece of state trust land is sold for development purposes. What is not on anybody's radar is what we do with the rest of our time. So in a down market, it's a management responsibility. It's a management responsibility for managing 9.2 million acres all across the state, which no state agency could do on their own. Neither can we make unilateral decisions about selling property without interacting with the county if it's in an unincorporated area, or the local community if it's an incorporated area. So we've spent a great deal of time building relationships with cities and counties throughout the entire state particularly in the growth areas. And you all are in part of a very vibrant growth area that includes Maricopa, Pinal, and Pima counties. We have regular meetings with your county staff, with the Pinal County staff, as we do with city staff, whether it's Mesa, where we just have a couple of pieces of property left. But we have a great footprint in Queen Creek. We are constantly meeting with Queen Creek. They're the target of a great deal of interest with regard to development, commercial and industrial development. I will tell you that another partner of ours is the Arizona Commerce Authority, which is a state agency, works hand in hand with the governor for economic development. And in fact, the auction that we were at the time pursuing in your area was in partnership with the Arizona Commerce Authority for economic development. Companies come to Arizona, want to locate, and the Commerce Authority, as any economic development group in any city or county, work very closely to try and attract that business. So we have folks who come to us independently, looking to buy state trust land for both commercial and residential and industrial purposes, as well as working with state agencies such as the Commerce Authority to promote their activities as well. Many of you are familiar with the TSMC, the Taiwanese chip making plant that announced earlier this year that it was looking to locate in Arizona. And in fact, the property that they bought was state land up on the 17 in an area that we call Biscuit Flats between the 303 and the 74, so up in North Phoenix on the west side. We retained some of the frontage road area on the 17 because we know that there will be commercial development that will go along. It just so happens that in addition to the footprint that we own, that the trust owns north of the 303, the trust also owns property south of the 303. So we are in a huge effort working with the city of Phoenix to develop that, not only for a tech park where TSMC will be breaking ground probably sometime this year, but also we anticipate that that's going to generate additional business opportunities for the state as well as real estate. So wherever that footprint is, and we'll get you, you can go on our website, or we'll get some maps that you can see. Wherever you see blue, that's part of the 9.2 million acres on that map that the land department is responsible for managing. And when we have an opportunity to be part of the local economy and sell land, we do that because it's in the best interest of the beneficiaries. The money that is generated from land sales goes to the treasurer's office to a permanent fund, which is a major funding source for K-12 education, as well as the universities and 11 other beneficiaries that are named in the state's Constitution and Enabling Act.
Okay. Do you have a follow-up, Glenn Fulmer? Mr. Fulmer? Mr. Fulmer?
I see.
Go ahead. Speak up.
I have to figure out how to unmute my mic. Yeah, I still don't understand. First of all, it was really a surprise to everybody, at least in my community and in Trata del Oro and in the the canyon, Peralta Canyons. It was out of the blue, and we didn't hear anything about it until that meeting we had that didn't go over very well at the church July 1st. And then, it was so quick. It'd be nice to have some heads up. I think it's really important to that. But my question again, and Jeff Sturdy wasn't able to answer it, at least to my satisfaction, is why here and why not on the south side of 60, the west side there?
So that is a good question. We look at the potential of businesses that we are able to attract and are looking for suitable sites. And in this case, please remember that there were two things that were happening. Not only did we identify an area for development But we also identified a manner, and Charlie Goff is on this call, and he will back me up on this. We identified an opportunity to address a goal of your area by packaging that auction with a significant footprint of open space, which is why we went to the county on their comprehensive plan. So we were in fact doing a multitude of things in this. If you take a look at the land ownership pattern for your part of Pinal County, you will see that the bulk of the property is state trust land. If there's no infrastructure around, you're not going to put any development because that infrastructure lift, and let me take a step back. You may or may not be aware that the land department had a rather large auction earlier for development in Apache Junction. That is part of an area that's 8,500 acres. We took land to auction that was approximately 2,700 acres, and part of that is building the infrastructure there. So that is a huge lift, building that infrastructure. So we were looking for some place that would meet what we thought the industrial requirements were going to be. And I don't mean hard industry, but also package it with what we knew it was is a community goal. And that is for the open space component that was the northern portion of the outline of that auction, proposed auction that we were going to do. We had been working with the county all along. It met the parameters of what the county is looking for as far as growth in the future, and it hit all those points. The big point was infrastructure, the ability to be able to address infrastructure.
Lisa, we have a question somebody put in the chat, Isabel Peters, and she's asking, it's understood that the land trust operates in the state's best interest. However, what is being done to protect Gold Canyon's special character? Industry wedged between two existing residential communities might help the economy, but it would destroy the unique identity of Gold Canyon and turn it into another Queen Creek. Many people I have talked to on our area would rather see an identity such as Cave Creek or Carefree. Would you comment on that? So that was from Isabella Peters.
So again, one of the reasons why we looked at the potential auction the way we did, and we're working very closely with the county, we thought we have to follow, like any other landowners, the organizational structure, the county plan, a city plan, planning and zoning, all of that in the same manner. We believe that we were offering, we were meeting the market in two ways. One, it has been very clear since the moment I arrived at the land department that your community has a very strong effort undergoing and has a long time commitment to protecting land in the area. And Charlie will tell you that as often as we've had these conversations, I can't just set it aside. I can't give it to anybody to manage. I can't give it to you. I can't give it to the county. It's got to be purchased. And so the combination of the two, recognizing that the area that we're talking about has the potential to meet the demands for the business climate, the industrial climate that's ongoing in Pinal County, as well as being able to address the concerns for SALT, for lack of a better term, in what they've been trying to do for a long time, we believed was the perfect way to proceed as far as making a decision on behalf of the portfolio. We are not, we are a land management agency, and the purpose of that land is to generate revenue for the beneficiaries. No matter what, we can't give it away. But we also, at the same time, unfortunately, do not have the resources to manage 9.2 million acres across the state. We know, I've been in conversations with a lot of folks in your area, and I think that you're aware that BLM and the state land department have a common problem this time of year, and that is the number of homeless camps that are showing up in your area. The impact to the land is great. We've just been working with a gentleman in your area who's been very upset about trespassers that have basically set up camp for an extended period of time. So we work very closely with whatever state or federal agencies we can to address those problems. But as beautiful as your area is, and trust me, I've been in and around that area since I was a kid growing up in Tucson, it attracts people, and land has to be managed. If it's not managed, it loses exactly what it is you're trying to save. So we've been trying, our attempt was the best of both worlds, to meet the needs of development at the same time as be respectful of areas that a community has placed a lot of effort in managing. I don't know how much better I can say that. We don't have a choice. I can't take the entire portfolio and say we're going to save it. There's a demand for land, and the beneficiaries expect that we are going to manage their portfolio, their land portfolio, in a prudent way. And we have no means to set it aside and not develop it.
Very good. Any other questions?
I have a question, but first let's see if there's any other general public that has a question before I ask.
Yes, I'd like to give preference actually to our guests, Steve, but thank you.
Roberta, this is Phil Todd.
Yes, Phil, go ahead.
I also attended the meeting the other night, and Dottie did with me, and I know Connie was there also. And it just gets this repeated comments coming from people that we want to be at the table. We want to be able to find out what's going on. And we all know that this last event was so many rumors and accusations and false statements about what was going to be happening. And I guess the bottom line is that I assume that Lisa's organizations, along with the county supervisors, get several people that come in looking for stuff or wanting to talk, and you know, as far as I'm concerned, this potential buyer was playing Arizona against Texas for better tax purposes or financial assistance to put their factory into one state versus the other. And that's a very common thing that takes place. And I don't think right now that, and maybe I'm wrong, I don't know what we should expect from Lisa's organization or our county supervisor as far as when is something a reality and when is something just a pipe dream, and how are they going to put the word out? There was just a lot of accusations and finger pointing going on over the last 4 or 5 weeks that was very, very disturbing. And I don't like what was happening.
So Mr. Todd, it was not intentional. We will disclose the information that we can disclose. Please remember, though, that while we may work with an applicant, and in this case, we were under an NDA, we were working at the request of the Commerce Authority, and we were under an NDA. That auction, we don't just plan an auction for one entity, because by law, we are required to have an auction for appraised value, and that the best and highest bid wins. And I can tell you that there have been as many, if not more, situations where someone shows up and outbids the entity that filed the application in the first place. And it just happened in Tucson on a 1-acre auction. Now, the good news is for the beneficiaries, and this is exactly why we have the construct that we have, is that it's about generating revenue for an asset that belongs to K-12 in this case. So while we may make plans with an applicant who comes in and says, I want to buy this, and we go through the whole process, it has to go to the Board of Appeals to make sure that the auction is properly formatted and that the appraisals are done, that everything is above board, it's a public policy and it goes to auction. Nothing guarantees the applicant a winning bid. And I have watched many an auction in my very short tenure at the land department that the winner of the auction is not the entity that put the application in. So we can make general plans. Let me also tell you that we're not a standalone operation. We have to comply with all of the rules and regulations that anybody else in Pinal County does. So we work very closely with counties and cities ahead of time, because one of the things that I like to do is shorten the amount of time after an auction happens as far as zoning. And first of all, it provides us a much more robust ability to attract people to the auction. So when we go into a community, and I'll pick on Scottsdale, when we go into Scottsdale, we work with the planning and zoning in the city of Scottsdale ahead of time to come up with a variety of zoning scenarios so that we don't just get home builders bidding on a piece of property or get commercial builders or something else. We know that that is a proven way within the construct of the local government to be able to attract a variety of people to an auction. And those zoning bank concepts, which we are using all over the state now, actually generate more revenue for the communities. So in Scottsdale, where we first did a zoning bank, the expectation by the city was that they were going to get another business area that was going to develop, when in fact an auto dealership purchased the land. And for those of you who follow revenue flows, car dealerships provide a revenue stream, a tax revenue stream for local communities much higher than a building does, whether it's residential or commercial. So we keep that in mind as well. We might have a particular use in mind, but we also know that there are going to be a variety of people. That's why it's critically important for the land department to work with the local government agency. In this case, it's Pinal County. In other cases, it's a city. In the case of the Apache Junction information, or the auction that we had, we're going to watch the land that was auctioned and is going to be a master plan community is all going to be annexed into Apache Junction later on this year.
Okay, Lisa, we have another question in the chat from Patricia Whittick, I believe. And she asked, she wants to follow up on Glenn's question about why not south of 60. And she's questioning that there isn't any infrastructure there south of the 60. That was a question from her.
I don't know how to answer that. Again, we were looking at a particular use. There is infrastructure north of the 60. There isn't. We didn't think that the area south of the 60 was appropriate at this time.
Thank you.
Lisa, this is Phil again. I think what the answer is, if it's that simple, is until the state gets a SR 24 built or Ray Road built or Elliott Road built out to the 60, there truly is no definition out there, in my opinion. And I appreciate your comments you made before trying to answer my question, but I think the bottom line is, until this area of the state defines what they want, you know, it's hard for you and any other agency to try to make some decisions. You know, and
but
then,
with all due respect, okay.
One final comment. I've seen them on a map that the town center is east of us, essentially where the propane distributor is in the RV park over there on the south side of 60. If you look at that area. Now, I don't know what the definition of town center is, but it's on the maps published by Pinal County.
I don't know. I personally don't know what town center is either. But I don't know how many times I can say that we work very closely with Pinal County. And we are abundantly aware of the deficit of transportation alternatives, but at some point, that part of that development is going to drive the building of those roads. Look at how long the conversation about north-south has been going on. We now know it's going to stay in the alignment where we all thought it should be, but it's years before north-south is going to be built. So this is an ongoing, and Connie might be able to answer this better than I can. These are things that are happening constantly and planning. I can't tell you how happy I am about the close relationship between the land department and our planning and engineering folks and rights of way with Pinal County, in the entire county, not just your part of the county, but the entire county. We know where the aspirations are for building roads. The question is, when are they going to be built, and how is the funding going to come about? We've been through several conversations about Meridian. We know that things are moving out there. We can't move as fast as the revenue requirement, but the planning and the conversations between the land department and the county staff, I think, have been spectacular because we're all heading in the same direction. We've got a large footprint, and there are many things that go into making that decision. And we all need to keep communicating.
May I return to the request by Steve now for a question? Steve.
I'm unmuted. Oh,
let me unmute. Lisa, I think my question is probably pretty simple. I'm curious with relationships to other governmental agencies, including the state. So say state parks has a park, and I'm talking federal as well, and there's trust property adjacent to a state park, or highway right away for the north-south freeway that goes through state trust property. Are those also purchase agreements? If the federal government had, if you had property next to BLM land or a national park, is that also that they were interested in? Those are also sales to those agencies as part of state law?
Yes, and I'll give you a perfect example right this very second that I am living. I just met with all the military installation commanders. I happen to be as the state land commissioner, because there is such a large footprint of state trust land around the state, and you may or may not be aware of all the military installations, but it includes Fort Huachuca DM, the Goldwater Range, Marine Corps Air Station, Yuma Proving Grounds, Luke Air Force Base, the Naval Observatory and Flagstaff is actually a military installation. Camp Navajo, we've got military footprint all over the state. And a team from Marine Corps Air Station came in to meet with me and the staff within the last couple of weeks. And there is a species, flat-tailed lizard, whose habitat is on the Goldwater Range, but actually it goes beyond that. And there's some mitigation that's needed. So the land department is going to work with Marine Corps Air Station. I had a conversation with command this week, and they're going to seek funds to be able to purchase land from the land department, not condemn it, not have a set aside, which we can't, but they're going to have to follow the same rules that everybody else does. They will get a partner. They will use funds in a program called REPI, which has to do with environmental issues for DOD, and they will purchase the necessary lands just north of Goldwater Range, which happen to be adjacent to Goldwater Range, which happen to be state trust land to mitigate for a particular species. If BLM needed something, they would have to pay for it. There is not an opportunity for the trust based on our Constitution and Enabling Act. If something goes out of the trust portfolio, the beneficiaries have every right to be compensated for that. So we can't give anything away.
So within the state, you do fund transfers for right away for a freeway or whatever it may be?
So ADOT will have to pay the land department for north-south.
Got it. Okay.
It's for every right of way, it's for every utility corridor, it's for every road. Nothing leaves the portfolio, including some of the natural product. So I have a very strong relationship with Babbitt Ranches in Northern Arizona. They too are a trust. They're a family trust, but they manage acres all over Northern Arizona, and they are my model, so to speak. It's been the most generous relationship I have ever seen. I now watch Babbitt, and they have learned how to monetize every single part of the asset of all the Babbitt Ranch land, which goes all the way across Arizona. The two of us are working on a golden eagle habitat because of wind generation up there. There could possibly be an impact on nesting sites for golden eagles. So we figured out in working with the private sector company how to be able to accommodate their interest in wind generation and at the same time not adversely impact a particular area where golden eagles are, and then monetize that to a certain degree by working with the Fish and Wildlife Service to be able to get credits against that particular impact. So I don't want anybody to think that we're a bunch of state employees that sit in a room oblivious to everything around us. We are completely aware of what that footprint looks like. And let me tell you, Roberto said we've been around for a long time. I've been around since 1976, working in government. I had the distinct pleasure of working for a member of Congress who represented the western half of the state, Bob Stump, for those of you who've been around Arizona for a while. That entire district, when he was first elected, was really not very populated. It was all of Yuma County before La Paz County ever came into being, all of Mojave County, all of Coconino, all of Yavapai, and everything west of the 17 in Maricopa, and the entire Arizona Strip. So I've been able to grow through these land use decisions from a different perspective, and I'm just delighted to be able to take that background and look for unique ways to be able to fulfill the mandate of the land department, which is to manage and essentially raise funds from the holdings that the beneficiaries have, which are 9.2 million acres and subsurface minerals, as well as every tree, every plant, everything on the surface, and figure out a way to make all of those pieces work while doing the job of raising a revenue stream to support K-12 in the universities, among 11 other beneficiaries. We don't do this blindly. Sorry, I don't mean to cut on.
Dave, may I reclaim chairmanship of the meeting?
Well, we've got two people.
I see that we've had waiting, but we have some last announcements. I think the topics have been addressed. Let me finish off with a closing statement and announcements by our committee for everybody's benefit. And I want to just kind of refresh information that has been previously published by us. Want to emphasize who we are, the Gold Canyon Community, Inc. We're all volunteers. We're all Gold Canyon homeowners. We're all your neighbors. Some of us living here 30 years, others more recent arrivals. We're from the private and public sector. We bring skill sets and experience as business executives, city planners, environmentalists, academicians, public officials, civic organizers, entrepreneurs. Our board of directors are all neighbors: Maxine Brown, Dave Coward, Charlie Goffs, Steve Nauer, myself, Dick Richards, Sandy Smith, Jerry Stevenson, and Matthew Bartola. We have standing committees that you've heard from: transportation and safety, conservation, community development and planning, communication, membership, and we welcome volunteers from the community who are interested in serving on any of these committees. And some of the things that some of us have done from our group since the early beginnings of Gold Canyon are following kind of activities. We've brought to Gold Canyon the identity signage that you see entering Gold Canyon on US 60. There's been leadership and long-term service within Adobe and within other civic groups, supporting quality home construction, encouraging development of Bashas Plaza and attracting businesses, restaurants, and other services, preventing installation of an intrusive radio antenna tower off Kings Ranch Road, mitigating military training impacts south of our community, improving road and street systems, removing hazardous cattle guards at the intersection of US 60 and Kings Ranch Road, upgrading a sewer system just south of Bashas Plaza that was emitting odor problems. We've led efforts to permit incorporation as a municipal government, and out of which we examined the reasons for its failure. We've worked at preventing closure of Peralta Trail Elementary School. We've facilitated establishment of the Sheriff's Substation on Kings Ranch Road, expansion of the fire and medical emergency facilities into Gold Canyon at 2 installations, hosting meetings to establish the first Lions Club, helping organize Gold Canyon Arts Council, participating in Adopt a Highway cleanup of US 60. We've helped clean up and transplant desert plants for the opening of Dinosaur Park. We've worked at mitigation of intrusive activities at county-owned land under the power lines adjacent to neighborhoods east of Kings Ranch Road. We've initiated community-wide meetings focused on reducing traffic congestions on Sleepy Hollow Trail and some of the adjacent feeder streets, leading to a resolution of an emergency exit for Peralta Canyon. In the past year, Gold Canyon Community, Inc. has gained approval from Pinal County to engage with and securing assistance from Arizona State University's Department of Urban Planning to develop a Gold Canyon Community Plan. We've requested county officials to organize a public meeting so that our community organizations could learn the procedures for effectively participating in the mandated 2021 major amendment to the Pinal County Comprehensive Plan. And in summary, we're problem solvers, we're innovators, we're visionaries. And at next month's meeting, we will continue with additional information in response to questions and suggestions from the community. We welcome invitations to make presentations to any of your neighborhood groups that you'd like for us to visit with. And you can contact us at ggcinc21@gmail.com and at our website, www.gccnaz.org. All of us working towards our service motto, which is building community through civic engagement. One last word to people who are concerned about hunting in our neighborhood. You might want to look at Arizona Revised Statutes Title 17-309, which regulates the use of firearms within 1/4 mile of residential areas in the practice of hunting. Lastly, we need to spread word that our Apache Junction Unified School District is facing a COVID-19 challenge. Out of 16 school boards in Pinal County, Apache Junction School District has the 5th highest number of COVID cases and is at the top of the list, is first in the number of fatalities. As of this past week, 6 deaths. So with that, I'd like to close the meeting with the community and welcome you to return each Saturday, first Saturday, that is, of each month. Thank you all.
Roberto, can I have 2 minutes?
Go ahead.
This is Abe Dye. Dave Coward had written a note regarding Jeff Siegel, who owns the Renaissance Center, Renaissance Festival. I had a very nice talk with Jeff Siegel 2 days ago. He's very much interested in what our organization is all about. I asked him if he would consider being a guest speaker. He said he would like to do that in December or January, explain what he has been doing and how he's coordinating promotion efforts for his business, and answer questions about the Renaissance Center, Renaissance Festival. So Roberto, I'll check back with you, and maybe he would be a guest speaker in December or January.
Very good. Dave and Charlie, any last minute announcements?
No, but I don't know if you want, if Ms. Atkins is available for a couple more questions. We still have some interest out there.
I am. I'll stay on
Okay.
as long as you want me to.
Okay, Roberta had a question, and then Donna Weiss, and then we'll have to close the meeting.
Okay, David, you're calling on me?
Yes,
Roberta Russell. Okay.
yes.
All
I'm
right.
sorry.
I actually have 2 questions. Who required the NDA, the non-disclosure agreement, for everybody who was involved in the background on this?
It was a process of the Arizona Commerce Authority.
Okay. So they had reasons to keep this quiet so that the Gold Canyon community didn't know.
No, ma'am, it had nothing to, ma'am, with all due respect, it had absolutely nothing to do with the Gold Canyon community.
Okay.
It had nothing, it was the NDA is we have several NDAs on projects that we're working on. It has nothing to do with any particular community.
So you're saying
It's
the
a
Arizona
negotiation. It is an opportunity to do negotiations with an interested party. We're requested to sign non-disclosure agreements with several people. So please don't think that this was specifically targeted at any one entity. It was not.
Okay, I'd like to make another statement, which will end with the question. It is true that people in Gold Canyon are very concerned about preserving what we think of as open space. It's also true that we have had for a number of years a major transportation problem out here that, has not been addressed. It just seems very odd to me that anybody would interpret those 2 concerns to mean that the people in Gold Canyon would find it acceptable to build a huge industrial factory between 2 residential communities. So my specific question is, who led you to believe that this would be acceptable to the people in Gold Canyon?
Nobody led us to believe anything.
It appears to me from information that was made public through a Freedom of Information Act request that there are people in Gold Canyon who were also under an NDA, who were working with the State Land Department months before the July meeting.
No, ma'am. Let me stop you right there. Okay. We were working with the Commerce Authority and the county. The NDAs that we signed were requested by other entities. We didn't issue the NDA. But I can assure you that the conversations that we were involved with were the Commerce Authority and the county. We were not involved with anybody in Gold Canyon, not one person.
Okay, well,
So I don't know where and you're more than welcome to call me at some point if you want to have more detail, but I don't know what Freedom of Information Act information you got, but this was a conversation among the Arizona Commerce Authority, the State Land Department, and Pinal County.
So you're saying that no community member of Gold Canyon was aware of this until the meeting at the church?
Yes, ma'am, that's what I'm saying.
Well,
To the best of my knowledge, I've
seen written evidence that that's not the case. And I guess I'll go back and look at the Freedom of Information Act materials. And
as for within the context of a resident of Gold Canyon, I personally do not know what you're referring to. I know that we had an NDA with the Commerce Authority. I know that we worked with the county. Beyond that, I'm totally unable to answer your question because I don't understand the context of it.
okay, well, there are quotes in the Freedom of Information Act materials that quote people from Gold Canyon as saying that they would support this. And I'd love to know how that came about.
I'm at a loss. I'm sorry. I don't know what you're referring to, and I personally am unaware of that.
Okay.
All right. And I'm more than happy if you would like to call me at the office to get more information from you. But the NDA that we signed was with the Arizona Commerce Authority, and I know that on a regular basis we meet with Pinal County officials for issues because of the large footprint of the state of the trust. In Pinal County, we have a good working relationship with the county staff, as well as communities, individual communities in Pinal County. And my primary example is the auction that we did last year on the land that is going to be annexed into the city of Apache Junction. We have regular meetings with both the county and Apache Junction staff.
Roberta, this is Jerry. Roberta, this is Jerry. It was in the public domain June 21st. Okay, so that's a few days before July 1st. So that's when it was, you can take a look at that.
And when you say in the public domain?
Well, it was it was on the county website. It was looked at when neighbors first got their notice. That was the first. I'm speaking, as you know, from Mountain Brook, but my understanding is that neighbors got a letter. They were nearby. Research showed that it was on the county documents June 21st.
I understand that, but I also understand that there were meetings going on in roughly the March timeframe that people that live in Gold Canyon were a party to. And I will go back and research all of this and find some documentation for you. And that was my point. It appears from the information that I saw in writing that there were people in Gold Canyon who encouraged this or stated that they would support the concept before the public in general was aware of it. I don't want to belabor this anymore. You know, there is a strong belief within the community that a lot of information was known way before the community at large was brought into this. And I think we should go on to something else at this point.
Sure. Donna Weiss has a question and we need to wrap this up. So Donna.
Okay. Hi. I just had a quick question. I don't know if you can answer this or not, but I was just wondering, how are the state trust land funds distributed? Is there a formula for that?
Yes, there is a formula for that. When land is sold or mineral, there are mining royalties paid that goes to a permanent fund in the treasurer's office. So the money is moved from the auction to the treasurer's office, and the treasurer's office is responsible for managing the permanent fund and making the distributions, and all that information is available in the treasurer's office. If it is land that is leased, for some reason, the lease payments go to the beneficiaries after they're accounted for in the land department. So with regard to K-12, lease payments on properties that are part of the K-12 portfolio of the trust. Those revenues are sent to the Department of Education that then distributes the money per their formula. So we collect the money and it either goes to the permanent fund in the treasurer's office, it goes to the treasurer's office for deposit in the permanent fund, or it goes to the beneficiary if it's a lease payment. And in the case of K-12 education, it is at the Arizona Department of Education.
Any other questions?
Charlie Goff. Am I unmuted?
Yes.
Lisa mentioned my name a couple of times, more than maybe 2 or 3 times during the, and said that I could confirm in each and every case she is correct. I can confirm what she said at the time. I'm chair of the Conservation Committee of this group. I'm also the president of SALT for the last 4 or 5 years. We have had sometimes, from Lisa's standpoint, probably too much contact with the State Land Department, but we have been very interested in this land since the release and before the release of the Superstition Area Land Plan. I can assure everyone that we had no prior knowledge of this. On the other hand, we, as Chuck Backus, who had been president at the time and dreamed up the Superstition Area Land Plan, as he said, as soon as we got the notice, we've been waiting for this for over 2 decades, something like this. We knew it had to come. Development was going to get here. I personally knew about it when I got the letter, since I live nearby and we received the letter. I didn't know about it when it hit the county website. I think the root of this whole thing, though, the most important thing from my standpoint that Lisa said about it, is the relationship between the trade-offs, between letting something develop that I think would probably not be nearly as austere as a lot of people have painting it. That the relationship between getting conservation of over 3,000 acres, including virtually all of Gold Canyon's east border, into open space at someone else's expense. Remember, it can't be given, it has to be purchased. SALT has wanted to conserve this since the release of the Superstition Area Land Plan. Money has been the biggest problem. This was going to take care of some of the most difficult area to conserve. SALT had not yet reached a conclusion as to whether it would be supportive, but it would have been very tempting to be so. We would not have released our position until a few days before the deadline. I invite everyone to go back and review the statement that is recorded here. Lisa, I thought, did a very nice description of the trade-offs and how this particular project might have allowed conservation of what most of us, I think, are absolutely committed to. I think it's one of the few things that most of us can agree on.
Any other comments, questions?
Roberto, this is Connie.
Yes, Connie.
You know, I worked in the superstition since 1986 as a federal employee, and I've also been into lands, minerals, and recreation for the Forest Service in and around the superstitions my whole career. And, you know, I've worked with a lot of land commissioners through that time, or a couple anyway, but I have never seen one as engaged in community as Lisa has been. She's participated in every meeting that we've had, and just loyal to the state, to what the state land trust is all about. You can truly hear her sincere concern, or she wouldn't be on this call today. I commend you Lisa, for being with us today and helping us work through this as a community. Your love for the land really shows. I'm impressed that you are so in tune to the environment and what's on the ground already. And I just can't thank you enough for being here today. And always, you participate more than people know in what's going on around the superstitions. We formed a public land managers group. You opened your arms and you come to every meeting we have. You're engaged, you're involved, you have a lot of great input, even though you can't commit at times to land planning. You're there available for us to question, and you openly and honestly answer our questions. So thank you so much from Pinell County for being here today.
Yeah, and let me
Thanks,
close.
Connie. I appreciate it.
And let me close by again thanking Lisa and for hoping that sometime over the 40 years or so that we've known each other, that I have shared with you my aspirations and support for open spaces in my native home county, my native home area, my native home state. And so I wish that I were one that would have, during any conversation over the last 40 some years that we've known each other, that I have encouraged you to continue working to preserve our beautiful open spaces. So thank you all guests for being here. And thanks again, Lisa.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Meeting's adjourned.
Thank you, everyone.